Hello, Bert. We can
Yes,
hear you.
I can hear you. I can see you. Everything is fine.
Good.
Tim, how are you?
I'm great, Bert. I'm glad to see you online with us. I was going to ask Tim if he talked to you recently. I'm sure you're staying in.
Well, I hadn't talked to him recently, and then he went, thank goodness, went ahead and set it up for me too, and that's pretty good.
Yep. Great. So, all right.
Now I go back to Tim. Does that touching it make me go back to Tim?
I don't think so. I think everything just happens automatically. It is voice actuated as far as I know.
I see. All right.
I will say, Bert, that your audio is breaking up a little bit, and that's just the nature of the audio when you don't have a microphone on headphones like Tim Orr and I
The
have.
audio here is fine. The audio for either one of you.
So, well, good. So there's just the three of us. So, Bert, you've been doing anything with your watches and clocks these days? Do you tinker with them at all or look at them?
Well, I look at them, and I do have an interesting problem. My wonderful old um, 3/4, I mean, well, 2 foot approximately, uh, Seth Thomas wall clock pendulum broke one of the two springs that hold up the pendulum. And it's a simple, it looks to me like it's a simple job of unscrewing the old pendulum and putting in a new replacement. But I haven't done anything aboard yet.
What do they call those things, Tim? The
Suspension springs.
suspension spring. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually got a two legs.
Yeah, it's got two legs on it, and one, the finer one, has broken.
Yeah. Of course, you'll have to get a new part. You'll have to get the new part from somewhere. I don't know whether that's something that Lou Oswald carries or not. We'd have to look.
Well, I would presume one of the ones back east.
Yeah, Merritt's or somebody like that. Time Savers in Phoenix, somebody. Which Seth Thomas is it?
It's about an 1890 3/4. I mean, what 2 foot length pendulum.
Aha.
quarter.
Okay.
And the pendulum is heavy. It's
Yeah.
a wall clock.
Yeah. It's like a number 2 regulator with a big disc up above and then a box-like thing below
No,
for the...
it's fancy with all kinds of things on the case, cute little pendulum type things. And so I wondered if, what is one of the parts houses back east that is still in business?
Well, Merritt's Antiques is still in business. That's in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they're online, so there's a, it's possible to go online and search their catalog.
Okay. Somebody knew.
But failing that is Time Savers, Time Savers in Phoenix.
Okay.
So we have a new attendee coming in. We have
Yeah.
Sean that has joined us.
Hey guys,
How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. So, Sean, have you gotten back to your office at all, or do you work strictly from home these days?
It's almost entirely from home. I've been back to the office a couple times to like check in on things and make sure the place isn't flooded. But
That's good.
I very rarely drive up to Boulder. I'm in Broomfield, and I've got my office down here. I've got a nice big drafting table. I got my computers and kind of all I
Sounds
need.
great.
Yeah, a couple video calls like this.
From looking in the background of your office space there, you're an architect of some kind?
Yep. This is all like old schoolwork and stuff that just kind of provides
Okay.
good decoration because it's very architecty. It's all the Roman and Greek column drawings that I had to do back in school. But yeah, now I just design animal healthcare facilities.
Okay. Veterinarian hospitals and clinics and
Yep.
things like that.
Yep. Animal shelters and veterinary hospitals and clinics. So yeah, if you've been to a vet or an animal shelter, there's anywhere in the country, there's a good chance that we've had some sort of hand in its design or layout or something like that. So yeah, it's cool.
Very good. Well, we got Terry Jones coming in. Look on your microphone and unmute and say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Nice to see you, Terry.
Same here. Missed the last one, so got it on my calendar this time.
Well, that's good. I'm hoping to schedule another one in a couple of weeks, and I am soliciting, of course, times and dates that work for people. I don't know if these lunches are good, and or if evenings or afternoons would work better for some folks, but I'm soliciting all kinds of suggestions.
Yep.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, Tim, how's it going?
We're doing good.
Good.
Nice to see you again.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
glad to be here.
so anything new on your end from the world of horology?
No, actually, I don't have anything really new or too interesting since last time.
So,
What's the deal with classes? Are you guys still in the like? I'm curious because you're actually a professor. Like what CU is doing?
Well, so nominally there's going to be a mixture of remote and in-class, in-person teaching this fall. In practice, I'm not sure how much in-person there really will be because they've put, even in the best circumstances, which are kind of like the assumption right now, they've put very low limits on the number of students that can be in each room. Like a typical room that I teach a graduate class in, the nominal capacity is 70. They're only allowing 15 people into that room. We have a huge auditorium that seats 250 people. They're allowing 26 people in that room.
So like Dwayne Physics or something, where you've got like the balcony and everything.
It's I don't know about Dwayne Physics.
25 people in there.
I would guess that Dwayne Physics might also be like 20. I know that Math 100, which is like a 450 student auditorium, they're allowing like 50 in that room. So so the choices are either to like figure out how to allow some fraction of your students come to class on any given day, or only use those for tiny classes, or just teach entirely remotely. But at the same time, the administration is putting a lot of pressure on the faculty to do at least some in-person teaching, because I think from a marketing perspective, they want to be able to say that there's in-person teaching. I think they're very concerned that if they don't say that, then a lot more students won't enroll. Like they'll just decide to take a year off, or they'll be complaining about paying their tuition. And so and a week or two ago, there was even a bigger scare because it looked like the administration was going to pass this rule that said that if international students didn't take in-person classes, they were going to be deported. I don't know if you followed that. And then they reversed that rule. So that at least is not the issue. But my plan is just to teach remotely. I think that shuffling students in like a third of the class at a time, is just, and then having like some of them remote and some of them in person and trying to communicate with both of them at the same time is just more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's not safe.
Yeah.
Because I think the other part of this is, that's the best case scenario, and I don't think we're going to have the best case scenario. My personal feeling is that once school, not just college, but once K through 12 starts back up, we're going to see an acceleration in the caseload, and we'll probably have another. I wouldn't be surprised to have another shutdown this fall, and I'd be really surprised if the university gets through the fall semester with in-person classes, even if they start.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember what the Hill looks like. You know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There's no way you're gonna keep people who are living, you know, in like the hot college areas. You're gonna keep them socially distanced.
There's going to be big outbreaks, and that's not particularly safe for the faculty. So
yeah,
you know, it's, you know, even if you're the administration and you don't care if your faculty gets sick, it would be pretty disastrous for the courses that they're teaching, you know, if they're in the hospital. So, you know, it might be penny wise and pound foolish trying to teach in person.
yeah.
You're saying it's hard to teach a class when you're on a ventilator?
Yeah, right.
Hard to lecture?
Yeah.
With the universities doing remote, that is a challenge for them, according to one guy that I've read, because if people can learn effectively remotely, then the question comes up, why do you have brick and mortar infrastructure for some of this stuff other than research facilities?
Right.
You know,
no, it's better off if we do sort of a, like an okay job of teaching remotely, you know. We don't want to do too good.
Yeah. Jack would join us, but he's gone off to get some lunch, I think. So, hi, Jack. Good to see you.
How's it going?
Good. Anything new over the months, this past month, in terms of projects, progress?
Yes and no. I think if I'd been better prepared, sorry, I've been working on edits for 3 different documents this morning. My brain's a bit scattered between them. But actually, I picked up, in the last month, I picked up 2 very nice watches I'm very excited about. One's I can go get them. We can talk about them in a minute if you want to go.
Yeah.
Go get them.
Go get them. All right.
Well, you know, Tim, in the meantime, while Jack is doing that, I could show off my $3 webcam.
Yeah, let's do it. I've enabled screen sharing if you want to do it.
Okay.
Or you
let's
can
see
also...
what we can do. There we are. That's live. That's
awesome.
Live right now.
Well, that's really nice.
I'm moving it around, and it's cost me $3 at a thrift store. So
Nice.
That's pretty good.
So these are USB cameras.
Yeah.
You know, that you used to get. You know, I've got one that's glued on the bottom side or taped to the bottom side of a. This was windshield washer fluid bottle, so it's my little diffuser and holder. So that's nice. Can you stick a watch underneath it now, or is that?
I have. Let's see. Let me see if I can do it. The problem with it is that it's kind of hard at this magnification to hold stuff steady, as you can easily imagine.
Mm-hmm.
You need some sort of support.
But there's, you know, there's a little Russian watch that I just recently got. And it's a, you know, it's a Pio, which is means flight in Russian. So
it looks like maybe a pocket watch in a
no, it's a wristwatch. It's a wristwatch, actually. You can see the lugs there.
Yeah, it's interesting with the second hands off at the 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and the thing on the right side is apparently the coat of arms of the city of Moscow, presumably from olden times, you know, but 17 jewels, and keeps fabulous time. Next project is this engraving is all, you know, the wax has fallen out and whatnot, so I'm going to try to renew the black wax in the engraving on the thing, see if I can get that done.
Yeah, good.
So
is that what's typically in there in reliefs?
Well, that they say they say that they use engraver's wax typically, which I guess is okay. Although a number of people have counseled me to try things like anything from paint stick to enamel, ink. I messed around the other day, and this is kind of interesting. I just used magic marker, and these two watch case openers are identical, but I just used some magic marker on this upper one, and of course the magnification is gigantic at this point, but still, that worked reasonably well with a shallow. That's just a stamp. That's not engraved, of course.
Looks a bit worn. The other option that I know that Dave Cooper uses is tester's paint. So black tester's paint, and you put some on, let it dry a little bit so it gets sticky, and then smear that in and try and clean up the...
Well, believe it or not, I went to McGuckin Hardware yesterday, and I just happened to have a bottle of tester's black matte paint. So
very good.
There we are, Other thing I was thinking maybe is, let me see if I can, are you seeing this? This is the camera. It's a little webcam if you're seeing it. I don't know if you're seeing it. Are you seeing it or not?
Still seeing the dime.
We're just saying,
you're still seeing the dime. Okay, so I need to figure out how to change. Let's see here.
So if you click on the little up arrow by the camera on the lower left of your screen, you can select different cameras.
Okay, let's see what we got here. And then what do I need to do?
So on the lower left next to the microphone, there's a video camera with an up arrow.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, gotcha.
And you can select different cameras.
Yeah. Well, what I have is I've got a. Just thinking about sharing screen, actually, believe it or not. You know how I do that?
Well, that's the center green thing, share screen. You're now back to just Tim O, your video.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what we got here. Here, how about this? There. That's what the setup for the dime looks like, if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see that.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the setup for the dime. And as I mentioned to you, I had to take the front cowling and whatnot off the camera in order to be able to unscrew the lens to focus that closely. The tightest I've gone so far is about 5 millimeters from the lens to the object. And so that's kind of what the setup for this shot with the dime looks like. And then here's the, just for fun, this is the inside of that Russian watch, that Pio, and here's a shot of the watch itself.
Okay, yeah. Well, those pictures are nice, and those are reasonable for sharing, with people to remotely to be able to see.
Yeah, but this was the real catch here, because like I say, I bought this at a thrift store for $3.
Well, they've all fallen out of favor once computers started putting them in, and people that were Skyping with remote stuff just got rid of their cameras. And now, back in the days of Zoom, if you want to set something up, you have to have a camera like that. So I'm going to switch to my little USB camera. Okay, so there's my mustard colored Pogue watch that Sean showed us, his blue dial one.
Ooh, that's nice.
So it's got a little bit of corrosion around the minute recorder. This is one where if I wear it when I do yard work, the crystal is all fogged up with sweat at the end of the yard work session, so I have to set it in the sun. So.
Wow, that's cool. That's nice. Yeah, the bezel's in really, bezel's in really good shape. The red has just a tiny bit of fade to it, giving away its age, which is really nice.
Yeah, this thing came from a Jones and Horan auction, and they've got another auction ending today, their Christmas and 4th of July. It came without the end lug piece, which I bought off eBay, but it came with the box and the papers. So it was a nice find. I'll switch back to me.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. See, look at that. I was showing my Pogue like I'd found something that nobody nobody knew about. Oh, of course.
Well, I have to say that Dan Schwartz educated me on the Pugs because I asked him about it prior to buying it, I think.
Yeah, I remember you were gonna bid. It was like it was a lot of more than one watch. Right?
It was two Seikos. It was a World Timer, which is the one that I was more interested in,
Yeah,
and
those are
then
desirable.
this yellow Pug, and I actually had a silver dialed Pug
Mm.
long time ago, and I gave it to a friend back when they were worth about $35 each, in return for some favors that he had done. And later I asked him, hey, you want to sell that back? And he says, nope. so
The silver ones, I think, are the rarest even.
so yeah, oh well, too bad that I got rid of it. But I kind of thought, well, it's Seiko and I'm kind of over Seiko now. So, and now I'm back into Seiko.
It's ironic that they're all, these subtle differences, but the one that has like the exact same variation of the dial as the astronaut wore is worth like 2 or 3 times as much.
I know. Isn't that crazy? You
Even
go
though
on
it's
eBay
not
and
necessarily more rare or anything, it's just,
Mhm.
it's the yellow dial and the, I don't know, resist or proof or whatever, I don't remember the details, but like that exact same variation, even though it's not particularly rare, that's the one that everybody wants.
Yeah, I noticed that. That was why I bought the blue dial version. All the text is the same, but the blue dial version was, like you said, it was
Less expensive. Yeah.
like way less expensive, like
Right.
by a factor of like 3 or 4.
Well, not only that, but people aren't tampering with them as much, right? Like, because the ones that are the true Pogue version are desirable, it makes people want to manufacture them and fix them up with aftermarket parts. And so if you're not going for that, like the most desirable variant, you're much less likely to run into that kind of problem.
Yep.
Okay, Jack, you want to unmute yourself and show us what you found?
Sure. Hopefully that worked.
Yes,
So
we hear you.
I unfortunately do not have a handy dandy webcam, and I've still yet to figure out how to get my iPhone to work with Zoom. Plus, I'm also being naughty and using my work computer to attend the meeting today. That way, when somebody texts me and tell me I need to go back to work, I can pretend to be. So, but what I do have is I have photographs that I can share. Just got them uploaded into a folder where I can get to them. Here, it's the one. All right, so the first one I bought actually arrived while I was away for work. I don't know if you recall, I was picked as part of a team to do what was deemed a critical infrastructure project in Hawaii. It may sound rough, but it was, I think the most dangerous aspect of it was navigating the airports to and from Hawaii. It was an interesting project, to say the least. But this arrived while I was away, and I spotted this on eBay a few weeks ago for sale in the UK, and happily I won it. And it turns out that I looking at the style of the black dial, there is only 2 manufacturers that use the font for this shadow box black dial. One is Longines, and the other was the Electa from Gallet. And so I rolled the dice on it, and I snagged it, and it showed up, and it turns out to be, let's see if it works now. Oh, I think something just happened with my, so it turns out that it's the Gallet Electa, and in really good condition. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll notice the regulator is all the way over to this one side. That's actually not an issue of the movement functionality. It's the fact that the swan neck regulator is missing. This thing just slides back and forth willy-nilly on its own. Other than that, the case screws are missing, but that's very minor in my opinion. You'll notice the crown is incorrect. So I emailed a Revell collector that I know who's in Switzerland, and he is a retired physicist, and he is also getting himself out of watch collecting and watch repair. He's, I think last time, I think he's told me he's well into his 80s. He wrote me back and said that he has spare crowns, and I'm waiting word to hear back if he has one that'll fit. The case is hallmarked for the UK. This is a 1916 hallmark for London, the World War I era. So I'm very pleased with that. It's a sterling case too.
Cool.
What are you gonna do about the swan neck?
Well, the thing is that these movements are not horribly uncommon, and it's just a matter of time to find the swan neck. Colin, who's the retired gentleman in Switzerland, he told me that he has a swan neck that he thinks will fit. He's familiar with this movement. He told me that the part was actually from a Petit Philippe, but I'm afraid to ask what he wants in exchange for it. So
The dial originally had radium, you think?
so the dial did originally have radium. There were 2 lume dots. There was one at the 6 and there was one at the 12. Those have since disappeared. You catch my drift? So I haven't done anything other than some cosmetic work on it. The threads on the case, the way it threads together, were very much gummed up, and so I uncased the movement, ran everything through an ultrasonic jewelry cleaner. The threads now are absolutely flawless. It's even better than the other Tavan's Bergel watch that I have.
So would that have been a Borgel case?
Yes. Yeah, it has the, let me go back to the other image. There we go. You can see that it has the Bergel key hallmark on it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a little water stain left over from cleaning. So, and then the other watch is, over the last couple of years, I have become more interested in chronographs, and unfortunately, chronographs are horribly expensive. I blame all you people for trying to buy chronographs and make them even more collectible so that I can't afford them. This one somehow snuck past everyone else, and I was able to buy it for what I thought was a very reasonable sum. I am especially happy, as you may notice, that this is an up-down dial, and it's because it has within it a Venus 170 movement. And here's a slightly out of focus. As far as I can tell, the only reason this watch is not running is because it's dirty. These are in the queue to get done. I'm happy that I'm at my workstation rather than down in my office, because I am slightly embarrassed by the condition of my bench. At present, I have, I don't know, at least 6 different projects going on in various states of irritation.
What was the maker's name on the dial? I couldn't read it.
That's a great question. I can't quite make it out myself. And maker's name on the dial is actually irrelevant.
Well, it's just interesting because it seemed like a very obscure name that I didn't.
It is. I've never heard of it. And in the 1940s and 50s, there were so many companies that were importing watch movements into the U.S. I mean, it was for the U.S. market. There's no doubt about it.
What did it say, Leandrinés?
Of course, I don't have my loop with me.
So it has a U.S. import code on the movement? I didn't see one.
Yeah, it might say Draconis or something like that.
Yeah, it seemed like that. If there's an import code on the movement, that could provide a clue as well.
Oh yeah, and I just haven't gotten around to looking it up yet.
Okay.
These are the things that I've received.
What is it?
Say again?
What's the code?
Don't think I can see it in the image
okay.
that I showed you. But one thing that I did think was fascinating about this, and let me share this again, is, let's see, back to sharing. It's very faint in the image, but there are a number of things that are engraved along the margin of the watch movement
by
that are hand done to satisfy the U.S. import requirements.
Yeah.
So this is the only thing other than the Venus hallmark that's stamped on the movement. Everything else has been hand engraved as to its import code, its jewel total, because here it needs to be, because the U.S. requirements require not only it to be a numerical value, but it also has to be spelled out. So it states over here in, it says 17 joules as spelled out. Yeah, and there's some other stuff. But it obviously, they didn't do a whole lot of importing for this brand. Otherwise, it would have been stamped. And because doing it by hand is a massive effort.
Cool.
So, and then, yeah, so the other projects I've got two Waltham World War I Arrow watch on the bench. I've got an Elgin. Both have had extensive case work done, and just trying to figure out the movements to complete those watches. I'm repairing a watch for a good acquaintance of mine who collects watches, and I stupidly agreed that I would do this for him because it's taking months to get it finished. And it's taking up valuable real estate in my bench. But it's a Guerin 450, and that's the chrono timer, which are hard to repair. The hard part is finding spare parts, and the one I finally found the part that he was missing. The issue is that because it was an uncased movement and he sent me a Guerin 450 case separately, there seems to be some inconsistency between the size of the lever that pushes on the castle wheel to activate the chronograph functions and the depth that the pusher moves. So I think I have to fabricate a new lever. I know there's another name for that part, but I'm not sure what it is. And I don't have a photograph to show anyone handy, but so I can wave hands.
So, on that cheerful note, I have some things that I'm not really working on that much. Mostly, actually, I was taking a college prep test today, so I've been busy, as you can tell. This is something that I have been fixing for a customer, and I might be able to move my webcam so we can see it a little bit better. Let me try an experiment here. Always a fun improvisation. Okay, so this is a little Elgin that I'm actually fixing up for an antique shop in Louisville. I got this watch a couple weeks ago, and I'm not sure what the date is on it. And he wanted me to give him, you know, a guesstimation on the price, I guess a guesstimation estimation, if you will. And I had looked around, I found one similar to this on eBay for about $100, $110. And, you know, with this one missing the fob, or with this weird little sink plug drain chain that's on here right now, I would guess it's worth like, what, about 100?
So hard to guess. Elgin serial numbers, that's all online, and it's also in the watch collector's price guide. So it's easy to date them. Elgins are not worth a whole lot, and that one looks to be like an exceptionally low jewel count, like a 7 jewel. Yeah, that's a 7 jewel. That's worth maybe $15 on a good day. The case is worth more for scrap value in terms of gold reclaiming than the watch is, probably.
What's the serial number on it, Lucas?
It looks like it's 26026853.
So it's a 26 million serial number?
Yeah.
So that's going to date to the later 20s.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I thought it was around 20. It's 14 karat gold filled.
Is that a size 12?
I'm not sure what size it is. It's about,
That's a 12 size.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 12 size Elgin. They made some as high as 17 jewels, but I've seen similar ones with good case, gold filled, and in good running order, around $100.
Yeah, the 17 jewel ones are pretty nice. I have a whole bunch of them because I bought a whole bunch of conversion cases for Elgin 12 sized watches. The 17 jewels, you know, the nice thing about them is the little regulator plate for the arm on the balance wheel is a screw attached thing versus a stamped in the base metal that the 7 jewel model has.
yeah. And then the other thing that I have acquired, actually recently, this took 3 months to get here. I bought this from Russia.
That's scary.
Yeah. In about late April. And this is, I believe, a 19 jewel overexposed Akita or rocket. And this is of course a 24-hour dial watch. One of my favorite parts of this watch though is the 24-hour presser bezel.
That's nice.
Yeah. And you can pick these up for a song like most of Akitas. I like this particular one just because it's got the blue dial with the black bezel, which is, you know, it's findable. I've just got my Walmart NATO strap on there right now because it didn't come with a strap. I have a Soviet bracelet, but that's on my other Rakita. And really, Rakita, which was made in the Petroverse watch factory in Moscow, is one of the more reliable brands. When I got my first Rakita back in late December of last year, around Christmas time, and I mean, I ordered it in November. It shipped through the Russian winter, the way to my house. Not only was it filled with gunk, it was working and keeping time almost perfectly. These things, they stand up to some shit.
They're pretty good watches. I've got this book here, and maybe we can do a session sometime on Russian watches, because I know some of us do have a collection of them, but this book lists, a lot of different models and the makes of it. And yes, there's your spaceman watch.
Oh yes, the good old spaceman. And the last two times I've ordered watches and parts for watches I got from India. That was very confusing, I know. It takes, about a month and a half to get here. This arrived in 5 days, which honestly it should have, because I paid $10 for shipping, and usually it's free. But
well, international shipping is pretty expensive. I've done it, but to get it in the time that you did for $10, that's pretty remarkable. So it must have been a priority mail.
Yeah, I did buy an Indian, almost not quite a Franken watch. And that part we're at pretty quick. I got it for $20. Everyone was talking about the goods and the bads of Franken watches, and I bought one for the hell of it. And that watch, one of the parts wore out, and I haven't bothered to replace it. And I got another, that watch, I don't remember what happened to it. It seems like there was multiple things that happened. That was a little while ago. But I did buy a Favre-Lebois Sea King from India. It's a cool little watch. It's one of the double barrel ones. And I got that one for around $22 as well. And that took about a month to get here. And the sliding pinion went out. And it has an original Favre-Lebois movement. It felt very Franken-watchy. It looks very Franken-watchy. I'm not sure how much of it is actually original and authentic, but it is definitely not the place I would recommend buying watches from. But
Tim, I did think of something I could show. I didn't think of it originally because it's not super new, but it's definitely not something I've shown at the buff. So since then, it was a project. I showed you a photo. It was a project that had going on for like a year and a half that was finally finished.
Yeah, let's see it.
My Longines chronograph. So I'll show you some photos, but what it is Longines 13ZN chronograph.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to bother switching to my phone because I have some better photos that I can show you. So I'll share, because it says I needed to do some settings with privacy, and then it says I need to quit and restart before it's going to take effect.
Okay. Well, let me share a screen then, see if I can share my iPhone via the cable. So there we go. So this is a Longines, little Longines wristwatch that I picked up, and it has what they call a 401 movement. I liked the way that they did the indirect seconds spring on it. Snapback case. Came from Jones and Horan. They claimed that the dial had been redone, but the dial hadn't been redone, but 2 of the lugs had been broken off and resoldered on, and they did a really remarkable job of getting it on. Fortunately, it wants to stop on me, so I tried servicing it a little bit, half-ass servicing, and it still wants to stop on me. So there's the dial, and that's the case, and a movement ring. And they later came out with a version of this where they use a larger movement. That's more popular, and mine with the smaller movement is less common. And I got this Minerva stopwatch, and it's got a little logo on it from the Denver Sports Car Club, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Pretty cool.
Got a Russian. This is a Russision dive watch, which I sort of briefly showed yesterday. That's a quarter next to it. It's movement comes out of the top. It's non-radioactive. That's the crystal, and there's a big rubber gasket. The crystal is like 3/16 thick, and there's a crown guard on it. That's some paper that came with it. Little thing. There's no radiation.
I was looking at one of those actually yesterday on eBay, looking at a few of those. Ooh, that's nice.
So, and that's the IWC watch in the case. So
Your Russian dive watch looks like it also doubles as a dive weight.
yeah, it's seriously heavy. So
Have you seen the ones that come with the compasses?
so I have seen some of the big Panerai has big compass version available. They tend to be pretty valuable.
Yo, I'd seen a really cool Russian diver, you know, all the original cases and boxes, and they had all the original papers. They included a couple pictures of someone wearing the watch, and his name in Russian, it was like Johann Jashtavara, or something like that. But he was claiming that it was his grandfather's watch, and that his grandfather was part of some sort of Soviet diving team, and this was really the only watch on his eBay account for sale, so I believed him. And that was about, I don't remember how much it was. And I mean, it was like, what, do you know those 3-day auctions that people will do? I had remembered I was trying to get a Gretchen Nevada, one of the, you know, my Croton computer, what's the Aviation ProMaster Sea Diver. I was trying to get one of those, and it went up to $300, and I thought, you know, well, it was holding at $82, and this was back in like January of last year, and I was saying, you know, I'm probably going to get this. It only has a day or so left. It's probably a 7-day auction. And then it jumped to $380 and then to $400. The person got it for $390, but it said $400 before the auction was over. I actually had run into 3-day auctions before. I was watching a Corum Golden Bridge. I think it was a solid 14 karat gold watch, and that was holding about $170. And I was like, that's a really good price for one of these watches. And on the day of the auction, I sit down and I go to the tab, and I get a 404 error. And when I got my connection back, my internet connection back, the auction was gone. It never said page not found. It never said this item was canceled. I looked at my watch list. I looked at my wish list, which is what I put everything that I'm really interested on. I looked through the complete history of eBay. I went into my web history and I clicked on all the eBay buttons. That thing was gone.
Yeah, eBay removes things that they determine to be scams, and they're just completely gone.
And you're not going to get a golden bridge for $400. You know, that's a $5,000 watch, and it might be at $400 10 seconds before the auction ends, and then there's, you know, a bunch of stuff. The rule of thumb that Dave Cooper uses or told me is that if you really want something and it's you know, a bid thing, you got to bid at least 3x what it is just prior to closing if you have any hopes of getting it. That's just his opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a good rule of thumb. I've been seeing more recently that it used to be 2x is what was always my rule of thumb, but I think a lot of the ones that I've been really going for have been 3x. Like if it's at $50, you better bid over $150, and sometimes even more.
Or just sitting home, there's nothing better to do than bid on auctions, right?
Yeah. My rule of thumb is it only takes 2 knuckleheads with more money than brains to drive up a price.
Yeah. I always.
On that note, did you guys see they're actually re-releasing the NVIDIA Gretchen chronometer?
Yeah. Oh, really? Wow.
Somebody took it up as like a pet project, and basically I think they've got like 3 or 4 different versions, and they're brand new. They
look nice.
They're pretty darn close to the original, and the size is about there. I think they're a little bit thicker, but if you really are interested in one of those, the guy's website is they're not really that expensive either. Like for what the originals are actually going for now, because the prices have just shot up over the last year. And
partly because of that book that Tim has.
Yeah.
Chronomaster only.
Yep.
Chronomaster, Aviator, Sea Diver. The only thing they missed out was astronaut.
Yeah.
Spaceman.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, where's the...
Yeah, you can probably put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I was gonna...
do a share screen?
Yeah. Or I'm trying to... There we go. No, it's funny. It's actually a little bit hard to find.
Yeah, I was having trouble looking for it.
Oh yeah, here you go. Page Introducing the rebirth. So that's just a Hodinkee article, but at the end it has the and it's the NVIDIA Grenchen official. How do you pronounce that? What's the right way to pronounce that?
Nevada Grinchen.
Yeah, Nevada. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, it's in the chat. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Nevada. Is it Grenchen?
Grinchen, yeah.
Grenchen. Yeah.
So, the reason why they added Grenchen to Nevada, they lost a lawsuit, or Movado brought a lawsuit against them
that's right.
back
I heard
in
that.
the 60s or something, complaining about trademark confusion. And, that,
Nevada.
Yeah.
so you'll see Croton and NVIDIA and NVIDIA Gretchen and Gretchen. They did some really interesting watches back during the 60s or 50s during the International Geophysical Year. And so I've got a few of those things. They're small watches, but, they were, designed for hard service.
Yeah. I think I can share my screen now. I could just quickly show this Longines. Yeah. So this was an eBay auction, and it was kind of in bad shape. The crystal was really cracked. It was really dirty with lots of corrosion from the strap. But these 13ZN chronographs are really hard to find with the dial original. And this was all original, which made it very appealing. Someone had removed the fixed bars. They had drilled out the fixed bars between the lugs.
Bummer.
And drilled an extra pair of holes on top of it. So who knows why? And so I got it in an auction. I went and had this little handmade shallow case back engraving too. So it had some problems, but like if you get a really nice one of these at a Phillips auction, they sell for like, $30,000 or something. So anyone that had the original dial and everything else original was really appealing and worth fixing up. And sorry. And as you may know, this is it's a flyback movement. These are beautiful movements too, and it's a flyback chronograph movement, which means you don't have to stop the chronograph by pressing the top pusher before resetting. You can just reset it with the bottom pusher while it's running, and it flies back to zero and just keeps running. So you can reset it. You can stop and reset, or you can just reset on the fly. You can see this was actually the movement when I received it. It was really in quite nice condition.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah.
And what's the serial number on it?
It wasn't running. I'll show you the extract. This is from Longines.
Okay.
So it's a 6 million reference 5020, 1942. So that's all the information about it. And so then I wanted to get it restored, and it took a long time. But now it's all restored. So
beautiful.
You can really see how pretty the dial is. It's really nice. I got fixed lugs put in, laser welded and refinished on the lugs. Pretty good job. And I think it came out pretty nice. I mean, the case isn't quite, it's like the case hadn't been touched before. So now it's been touched.
Yeah, sure.
But at least those holes are all fixed up, and the bars are back in place. And honestly, the dial is amazing in my opinion. It's just
yeah, it's spectacular dial now.
Who did the case work?
Aging, but it's so beautiful. Yeah.
So did Bruno do the work on?
Bruno did the movement. Bruno did the movement. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't running. I forgot to mention when I bought it, but there was actually nothing wrong with it. It just needed to be serviced. Bruno serviced it. He actually had the movement taken out of the case for like a year and a half while I went through a whole odyssey of trying to get the case repaired. But I eventually did. It's kind of got one of these, I'm sure you're familiar with these kind of cool 2-color dials depending on the angle of the light. Like in this photo, you can kind of see that the outer ring is darker, but if the light comes from a different angle, now the outer ring looks lighter.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's kind of a neat feature sometimes. So yeah, I'm really pleased with it. It's a nice size. It's 36 millimeters, and it works great. Yeah. So that was my project that I got in like November 2018, and I I finally got it back in like early 2020.
Worth the
Like
wait.
that leather stitch band, the brown and the stitching really goes well with the watch.
Thanks. Yeah, it has the fixed bars, so you can't. It's not so easy to find options. But I like this one. It was actually just a cheap eBay strap, but it has those sort of folding flaps that allows you to kind of put it around the fixed bars. And I think it's a good match too. I like it.
Yeah, it is interesting. So those folding tabs are kind of sewn into the leather, and you don't see it from the top side.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. No, they're not visible from the top side. I have another band that a glue up band that's a little bit nicer quality that I was originally going to put on it, but I put this on it just to kind of get a band on it, and I actually liked it so much I kind of just left it.
I'm very interested, Dan, in who, if you are willing to share as to who did the work for the case for you.
Yeah. So ultimately, it was LA Watchworks that did it. LA Watchworks.
Okay.
It's just lawatchworks.com. They, so there was a combination of laser welding those holes and, refinishing, and they did a pretty good job,
So I'd been searching locally for a jewelry store who would be willing to use their laser to do stainless steel. And right before the pandemic hit, I found a guy who's actually over here in Arvada. His laser is sufficiently powerful enough to do stainless.
Oh, good.
And he did a really good job of filling the hole. And I was able to do it more cheaply because I did the finishing work on the case.
Oh, good.
And
the guy,
I think he since has gone out of business.
Oh, that's too bad. That's kind of a.
there's I had to do a little bit of stainless work on an old Breitling chronograph I had a few years ago at the Cherry Creek Mall. The jeweler that works at the Fast Fix that's right there by the movie theater, he has a really nice laser welder, and he's a watch guy, and he just I don't even know if he's still there, but he would come in like 3 days a week, and me and him would just kind of chat, when I would go in for like random things. And he did a good job filling holes as well. And then it was the same thing. I took it back from him after he'd filled everything, and I sort of redid the finishing on it and stuff. But it was just the Fast Fix jewelry guy who had the laser welder, and it worked on stainless. So, but yeah, that case, that's a really cool movement, and it's crazy how long it takes to get those things done. But no, the case
You did a phenomenal job with your watch, Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy to have it back. It was kind of a saga, because the reason it took so long actually was because I got a recommendation for a different case repair place and sent it to them first, and they were the guy was sitting on it for a long time, and then he sent it back, and he kind of did kind of a crappy job. And so then I sent it to this other place, and they fixed it up. And so it was, they had to sort of partially undo what he had done.
Now, Tim, I've got a question for you.
I assume you're talking to me?
Yeah. And I just wondered about some of the other methods. Is Dave Cooper, he's not here, so I just wondered, he's too busy?
It could be. He was at the first meeting, and
Art Bissell was the other one I wondered about.
okay, I haven't spoken to Art in probably 2 months, but I need to call him and get him on these things, because he's got a lot of interesting stuff that I think he could share.
Yeah, that's right. And he might bring some watches into the game. I should have brought along a watch or two.
You should definitely call Art this week, because it was his birthday on Monday.
Oh, wow. So you've spoken to him?
No, Facebook told me it was. I talked to him about a month and a half ago and emailed him, but he hasn't responded to my email.
I've talked to Art in the last week or two, and he's doing just very, very well. His company is doing fine, and he's just surviving perfectly. Dave Cooper, I haven't heard from, but he's he's probably in the middle of his real estate business.
I talked to him. He was at our previous meeting a month ago, but I'd like to have him do a shop tour of a great shop.
Well, anyway, so because there's only 8 here, I was wondering where some of the other ones were.
Well, people are reluctant to use Zoom. Some are. Some people, they just don't see the point of it. And I think there's just a lot of people might not be paying attention to their emails. So,
well, it might be interesting that I've been using Zoom. My kids have been using Zoom. I have 4 daughters, and they Zoom together, and then other organizations Zoom. Zoom is really a God's gift for us.
Yeah, I don't know what we would do if this were 10 years ago. We'd all be up a creek, that's for sure.
Our chapter 21 is using Zoom now. I've attended one meeting and a board meeting, as Tim can attest, and we're going to meet on the 27th with the Zoom. And then I'm a member of the Denver Coin Collectors Club, and they met with Zoom. I had a pocket watch story, if there's time for it, Tim.
super.
I would like to interject one thing about the Zoom usage that I would think a coin collecting club would be open to change.
Nice. Well,
Dad jokes.
It was an interesting show. The guy did a power presentation on a group of gold coins that were found out in California several years ago that were all rare Morgan gold dollars, and $20 pieces rather, and they were worth several million, and they just found them in the property,
Is that one that was, it was in like an old soup can?
An old tin can, yeah. So we had a presentation on that. Well, I had a quick story. I think it was late April, early May, I got interested in Vortec up in Fort Collins. R.T. Custer, you may recall, he was at our regional, and he had been sending emails about their business. They closed down for a while, but had reopened. So I scheduled an appointment up there. When he came out to meet me, he was wearing a military watch that was on a watch band on his wrist that looked like this. And so I didn't know much about military watches. And he said that they had recently had an agreement with a group of retired veterans back east somewhere that they can do repairs on the military watches. And I guess there's more and more military guys that have these watches laying around, and they'd like to get them converted to a wristwatch situation. And I had a size 12 Waltham that I wanted to get converted to a wristwatch. And by the way, if any of you have seen the latest bulletin, you know that there was a wonderful article in there on 12 size watches, all with beautiful gold cases and so forth. So I had a Waltham that has what is called a secometer instead of the seconds in the sunken at 6 o'clock position. It's a little meter with a rotating dial that shows the seconds, and that's sort of rare. So I spent my $1,200 government check on a watch that's being converted to a wristwatch. I toured his place. He has $250,000 worth of equipment up there in Fort Collins and does the 3D printing and all that. And so that got me interested in military. And so I picked up this military chronometer on eBay recently. And that's my first chronometer.
That's an Air Force watch with a stopwatch.
Yes.
It's a very common watch, but it's a very beautiful movement.
Yes, I learned about that. The guy that I bought it from on eBay was an NAWCC member, and he described it. He said, this is a great piece of history from World War II. This particular watch was made in 1942, which was the year I was born. He says these military chronometers were used on aircraft and ships to time speed and distance and compare with a known source. It has a stopwatch function and will start the big minute sweep hand when the crown is pushed down. It will run until you push down the crown again and it stops at that moment. It has a 30-minute register at the top that advances every time the minute hand makes a round. It will reset to 0 when you push down the crown again. I did a little further. Hamilton brought these out during World War II. It said on the one of the Hamilton websites, they ramped up production of several models of chronometer to meet the U.S. Armed Forces, particularly the U.S. Navy's needs for an extremely accurate timepiece, which could be used for navigation at sea. Prior to World War II, such highly accurate instruments were only produced abroad. The first Hamilton chronometer.
What happened?
Yeah, Terry just lost his audio.
I thought he did something.
Two is a navigator stopwatch based on the super reliable 992B with Elenvar hairspring and monometallic balance. The Model 23 adds a chronograph mechanism, making it one of the most complicated watches produced by Hamilton. The Elenvar hairspring was patented in 1931, used in all movements thereafter. The name Elenvar was derived from the term elasticity invariable and was the first alloy to resist the changes in elasticity that occur with changes in temperature. So that's my show and tell. By the way, I'm wearing an Apple Model 4 watch, and a while ago it vibrated and told me it was time to stand up. So
Yeah.
keeps me exercising and busy. I'm enjoying it.
You're wearing an Apple Watch? Blasphemy.
The nag function.
Oh, yeah.
So that it'd be interesting to know if Vortec could do a conversion on that 23 into their case, like they're doing that A13, the watch that you first showed. I saw RT in New York City in October. He was at the Wound and Worn fair in the Chelsea market, and they had just released that A13 conversion. So when you buy that watch, if you don't have a watch to give them, they sell watches that they've gotten. The case for the watch or the packaging that the watch comes in is an ammo can, and they give you the original pocket watch case that it came in, and it's a converted wristwatch, and it's in a black case. It's a nice setup. They're big. You gotta like big wristwatches.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went on the conversion he's doing for me is a size 12, so it's a little smaller.
Yeah, that's much more reasonable size, and I'll have them do one for me at some point here. I've got a 23 jewel Elgin.
I thought the price he said on the military watch conversion, and they have a display stand that's made out of aluminum, and they were cutting those at the time I was up there. I think the price he charges on those is $5,000.
Okay, sounds right.
Tim knows that I've got a bunch of 12 size Hamilton in solid gold cases, and they're very interesting. It looks like now they're going to become more interesting.
Well, it's a great size for the watch, and that was a popular size after around World War I, post World War I. Everything migrated to that small 12 size before the whole pocket watch market disappeared.
Yeah, R.T. Custer gets the movements from various sources because, as you all know, people were cracking out the gold cases and selling the case and leaving the movement. So he's got a large table displayed of Elgin movements, and then over here are Waltham movements, and then here are Hamilton movements. So he's got a lot of material to work with. And I saw in his latest email where he's advertising for a watchmaker. I guess you'd have to move to Fort Collins, but salary is 30 to 40,000, which you'd have to find where can you rent. and buy a house or anything in Fort Collins to make a living on 30 or 40. Then he needs an office manager too, but they do seem to be doing well and they're expanding. The lawsuit that Hamilton served them, that was another reason I think, Tim, he was back there east. They had to go to court with Hamilton and pay an attorney to fight that trademark disagreement. And he feels confident they'll win that with Hamilton, but they should know in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the judge is ruling on it, but the judge said a lot of things that seemed positive in regards to that. If you go on YouTube, Vortec has some videos up there, and RT does a tour of their shop. So he shows them, he's got a couple big CNC machining centers that are really as nice as anything you'll see in Switzerland in a watch factory. And he's machining these cases out of a solid block of titanium. It's a 7-hour machining job to create a case.
Yeah, and then if you want it bronzed, it's a little extra money to have that titanium bronzed, which is what I did.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, before we get going here, on the topic of converted pocket watches, or at least something roughly in between those, this is a watch that's been with me pretty much since the beginning. I started getting into watches. This was my first pocket watch. Really my first mechanical watch that wasn't automatic or quartz or atomic. This is a little no-name, I believe it's German pocket watch. Actually a decent piece. Let me show you the movement here. It's
Looks like it's a silver case.
Yeah, I think it is a silver case because I don't see a marking for Silveroid anywhere. In fact, it doesn't have any markings on it whatsoever. I think it says 528 somewhere on the movement. Actually, no, it says Le Flecheron on the movement. So I think it's like it's either German or it's Swiss German. And the movement in there is one of the little palletless movements. And when I went to clean out this watch, I found it was filled with sawdust and coffee grounds. I smelled them and they were coffee grounds. And there was sawdust in there as well. I guess someone was a woodworker and they were drinking a lot of coffee when they had this watch. But yeah, the crown is missing. This is the condition that it was given to me in, and I'm still kind of looking around for pieces for it. I'm thinking eventually, once I get better with my tools, I might make a new crown stem and find an original crown to put on here. And a second hand shouldn't be that hard to find, but eventually it will be a complete watch. But until then, I'm just kind of winding it with a screwdriver.
Very good.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the dive watch on the wrist.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
Very nice. What's the size on that one?
80 millimeters across. That's big.
Nah. That's a reasonably sized. I think that's actually what inspired the giant Invicta, the giant watches Invicta makes nowadays, because they started out as a Soviet dive watch company, and they were one of the bigger ones. And they started remaking the dive watches. I think it was in the 60s or the 70s, and I think they were, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I know that Vostok was making the solid steel cases, and they were sort of the almost the Timex of Russia, only they were slightly better quality than Timex at the time. And Invicta kind of disappeared into oblivion, and it came back with these giant dive watches, and that's really kind of where they got their roots in that market, at least got their name associated with it. And it's weird because you don't really think of the Invicta name as being Soviet Russian.
No, you don't. It was definitely an ancient brand. Nowadays, it's, a cheap watch company. Well, they have some nice watches, but a lot of Chinese-made stuff, and they do a lot of knockoffs of other people's designs, and they're considered rather disreputable amongst serious collectors.
Pro diver.
I wanted to offer the antithesis to Tim's watch, which is my 29 millimeter men's World War II watch.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was the size.
That was the size. It came
Tim,
small.
Bert?
it's getting an hour and a half, and that's about as much as I can. I think I'm going to have to stop.
Okay, good to see you.
Okay.
Great to see you, Bert.
It's been very nice to hear all of your conversations and see what you're doing. It's really nice. enjoy it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bert.
I have to go back to work as well too. I've got some emails that come in.
Okay, how do I turn it off?
Should be a leave me.
Lower right corner, it says leave.
Yeah.
See you, everyone.
There we go.
That's taken care of. So, Sean, you've been holding something up a little bit. You got something to show us?
Yeah, I had a couple things I wanted to, I guess, kind of building on what Dan had. I've got a Breitling Chronomat. It's a 769 reference. It has kind of that similar
Wow.
similar dial that's where it's two-toned.
Yes.
And the outer chapter ring is kind of like a frosted silver, and the inner chapter ring is kind of a slightly different one. And it changes with the light. It's similar. And then the slide rule bezel on the outside is even a slightly different frosting on there too. So this was one that I got a few years ago that I've had. It actually, I think the mainspring in it has kind of started to just not have enough zip to it, and it still winds fine, and it'll run for a little while and stuff, but then it kind of just goes down. But I've had this one for a while. I wanted an old chronograph, and so I bought a Benris Sky Chief, and it has a Venus 178 in it, the 3 register. And I think I paid $1,000 for it. This is probably 2012 maybe. And it was just dirty. And so I took it apart and serviced it and put it back together, and it ran just fine. So I kept that for about a year, and then I sold it to a guy in London for $2,000. And it was a pretty good return on investment there. So then I took the $2,000 and I bought a Breitling Chronomat. I bought one similar to this, but the dial wasn't in as good a shape. And so I fixed that one up, same thing. And I serviced it, and then I sold it for, slightly more than I had gotten it for. And then I took that money and I bought this one. I found this one actually on a Breitling forum that the woman had then posted it on eBay, and she'd consigned it to a jewelry store in Portland, and then Portland had the jewelry store had then put it on eBay. But I found it originally on a Breitling forum when I was looking for information on the correct crystal. And there's I forget what the brand is now, but there's the crystal for these old Breitlings. There's one company that still makes them, and so I ordered a couple different ones, and for this one. But when I got this, the woman had found it at an estate sale. She bought a cigar box full of costume jewelry, what she thought was costume jewelry, like bead bracelets and Mardi Gras, necklaces and stuff like that. And wrapped up in a Kleenex was this watch. And it had like had an old expansion band on it and stuff. And it was untouched. And she had just put photos of it on the Breitling forum and said, "Hey, I just found this in a box that I bought." I think she paid $6 for the box of costume jewelry. And so she put it online, and then everybody kind of commented and said like, "Oh yeah, it's in really great shape. It looks all original. It's really, really good." So she then took it to the jewelry store. I contacted her and she said, "Yeah, I consigned it to a jewelry store in Portland." So I bought it on eBay from the jewelry store from her, and I've had it ever since. I put the crystal was all yellowed and cracked on it. That was really the only thing that was wrong with it. And I serviced it and put the new crystal on, and I've had it ever since. And I think, yeah, unfortunately the mainspring has just kind of gone out on it, but it's really cool because it still has the original lume on everything that's turned like a nice kind of tan color.
Yes.
Nice patina.
Yeah, and the case has never been polished. It still has the original like brushing on the back there. It's got a couple of marks you can see from like, sitting on a counter or something like that. But the
expansion bracelet, banging around with the expansion bracelet, scratching the back.
Yep. Yep. And the pushers are still nice and sharp, and the bezel, the crown seems to be original and stuff. I found the old ads, like the magazine ads for them, that show this particular model. And yeah, it's been a really nice one. It's unfortunately it's become one of the watches that I don't wear because I'm afraid that I'll bang it on something, or I'll knock some of the lume out or something like that. You know, it's just like it's too crisp. It lived in that cigar box wrapped up in a Kleenex for probably, you know, who knows, 30, 40 years maybe. The serial number dates it to 1945. So it's a pretty, it managed to survive quite well. I don't think it's a Venus 175 movement in there, which
Okay,
is,
I was going to ask you what movement it was.
yeah, it's a 175, the 2 register, which is also in really good shape. It doesn't look like it's been, you know, messed around with too much. But and the other one I wanted to show was one I got maybe about a year ago. With all the talk of the gold watches and the dress watches, I always like to have one gold watch that I wear with my suit, and it's a solid 14 karat gold Hamilton Masterpiece Thin-O-Matic, and I got one of these when I was living in New York. I bought a watch lot on eBay, and it had like 10 watches in it, and the photo wasn't very good. And I think I paid $50 for it, and it had one of these Thin-O-Matics in it, and it was a 10 karat gold, a solid 10 karat gold, and it was in pretty good shape too. And so I wore it the whole time that I was in New York as my dress watch whenever I wore my suit. And when I got married, I gave it to my wife's cousin, who was our officiant. And I got nice watches for all the groomsmen that were all stainless steel, and they were all like from the 50s or 60s, you know, 34 millimeter, 35 millimeter dress watch kind of watches. I fixed them all up and I gave them to the groomsmen for being in the wedding. And the one that I had for my wife's cousin, the watch I couldn't get it running. And no matter what I had done to it, I just could not get it running. And I wasn't going to give him a watch that wasn't running. So I had this Thin-O-Matic, and I said, okay, I can probably part with it. So I gave it to him for the wedding. And then I've been looking for one to replace that for like the last few years. And I finally found this one. It has, you won't be able to read the engraving, but it was one of those award watches. And it says it was given in 1972, and it was for 25 years service at the Union Carbide company.
Nice.
The Union Carbide logo on it. And what was really cool about this one is that it came with all the original paperwork. And the person I bought it from was, I think it was the wife of the man who had gotten it, and she said he never wore it. He said it sat in the box, it was never worn, and to her credit, it looks almost complete, like if you can see the edges and the polishing and stuff on it, and the way that the brushing.
Yeah, the graining on the back looks perfect.
Yeah, the graining looks really, really good. And it hardly has a scratch on it. And it's got the original crystal. The problem with these Thin-O-Matics, which I always kind of like them because of the name Thin-O-Matic, which is like very, vintagey, yep. 1960s. They're front load. And so you have to pull the crystal off, to get to them. And then they have one of the slotted crowns.
Split stems.
Split stems, yeah. So they're a little bit difficult to work on. I don't wear this one very often, and it runs, I know I should service it, but it runs fine, and I just don't wear it that much. So, and I'm kind of afraid to ruin the originality of it by pulling the crystal out of there. So, yeah, so that was just one. It's my solid gold dress watch that I like to keep. And, the Hamilton made some really, really nice dress watches back then. And they're really not too expensive. I think I paid $400 for this, maybe, like with it being solid 14 karat is pretty good. And then I bought I like the Cordovan bands. So it's got a Horween shell Cordovan band that I put on it. And I sourced an original Hamilton buckle. So nice. It is a 14 karat gold solid 14 karat gold Hamilton buckle, which you see them come up on eBay every once in a while. And shit, they're not cheap. You know, like I think I paid $400 for the watch with the box and everything. I think I paid another $100 for the buckle. Just because
you can spend $300 on those buckles if you buy them from Jules Burrell. So you know they're not cheap.
Yeah.
So is it a 31 jewel movement or the 17? Do you know?
You know, that's a really good question. When I got that first one, I kind of got obsessed with them. So I bought a bunch of the other ones that are in the gold filled cases, just to sort of see what they were. And it's a good question. I don't know. But
it's a great movement. That's that Buren micro rotor.
Yep.
It was a Bulova Ambassador was sold. Bulova Ambassador was another brand, model that used that same movement.
Okay.
Designed by Bulova.
Yeah, and that was sort of what they originally, or it was was that the base movement, or at least the concept for the base movement of the caliber 11?
Yes.
They used, yeah. So yeah. I always thought that was kind of cool because I have a caliber 12 in my Octavia, and so I've always kind of liked the Hamilton micro rotors. They're good looking movements, and it's a good looking dress watch. It has, in my mind, it has all the class of like a Jaeger LeCoultre or a Patek Philippe or something, but it's all in a very tidy, not nearly as expensive package. So
yeah. I remember the first mechanical wristwatch I got. I actually saw an elderly woman was getting rid of some stuff in her attic. She was at a miniature show. One of the things she would do is I saw all the things she had made at the show had some form of watches in them. Usually they were Timex Electronics or like little Benris and Bulova Lemons watches on the walls. They were clock repair people shops. And the woman, Roberta, sent me a bag of just some stuff she had sitting around, and one of the watches in there was a stainless steel Hamilton, almost exactly like that one. It wasn't a Thin-O-Matic, it's one of the mechanical ones, but it definitely is a weird one. It's not a front loader. You drop the movement out of the back, but it's actually integrated into the case back itself, and it still has the two-part crown. And when I was first getting into repairing watches, I pulled out the crown one day and I turned it wrong, and I ended up pulling the crown out, and I thought the watch was broken and that I would have to have it repaired. And finally I learned about what a two-part crown was, and I was like, oh, well, there's that done. So yeah, and I have a watch. I showed it off at the January meeting, and that was the big Continental chronograph that I got from Mexico. And that watch is a front loader as well. You have to pop out the crystal. And when I originally pulled the crown out, I thought that I'd broken it because the end was round. And I thought I'd just broken it off. I thought, well, I mean, it's a one jewel. I think it's like an EB 8810 that's in there with a chronograph module in the back. It's the Sears chronograph. And I thought, it's not going to be too hard to find. And I looked closer and I realized it has a really weird setup for the two-part crown, because instead of having the female part and the male part that slot like that, it actually has a circular component with three little claws that grip it, and then the inside is keyed. And the idea behind it is you don't have to rotate it to get it in, or you barely have to rotate it to get it into place. And it's really a weird little watch. It doesn't have quick set. What it has instead is you set the watch backwards and it catches the hands at midnight, and then it flicks the calendar back as you turn the hands around, and then you set it to one date before and then find midnight of that night. So
strange.
Yeah, very weird. And I haven't taken it apart too much because it's a one jewel movement. I don't want to destroy any of the cheap little pinions that go in there, and I need to look at it because the chronograph doesn't spin now. But the calendar for it is really the only calendar like that. I don't think the Sears chronographs did that. So it's some sort of level of customization, sort of a weird little quirk.
I had a quick question for Sean. That first watch you showed, would it be not acceptable to replace that mainspring? Would that be taking away the originality of it?
You know,
No.
it's a good question, and I always ask that on everything that I'm working on. I think it'd be fine. I think, in my opinion, mainsprings are kind of consumable.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it at some point. The problem I'd gotten on one of the other Venus 175s I was working on. I ordered a few parts from Blake down at Scotch Watch, and he's been really helpful. And he's got a couple of mainsprings that he said would work for the 175. And I think I will probably do it at some point. The problem I'm having is that in order to get to the mainspring barrel, you got to take everything apart again.
Yeah.
And I remember just holding my breath when I took it all apart the first time. And I was really careful not to scratch the hands and the dial. And it was this whole exercise in being as just unbelievably delicate as I possibly had to be. And at the time when I did it, it was, I had just bought it. And I think I'd paid, 2,200 for it maybe. And which was like the top end of anything that I've ever purchased. But again, like everything with watches, they've gone up quite a bit. And so it's worth even more than that now. So I know I would just be sick if I scratched it or something, so I'm procrastinating right now. But I guess to answer your question, I should probably just go ahead and do it. That wouldn't bother me. Some things would, but that wouldn't bother me.
The reality is that you could leave it as it is if you're just going to wear it to some watch event, and you'll have enough run time on whatever is left in the mainspring. Have you ever tried to stabilize antique lumen hands using any kind of adhesive or thin liquid, fixative?
I haven't. I've seen some people do it, but it's nothing I've ever tried. What was it? I think they did part of it. Did you guys see the video of the tutor that I think it was in Vietnam. The guy had gotten shot and the bullet hit his tutor.
Yeah.
Went through his arm, and they just came out with a video where they restored it. And they show them keeping, straightening the hands and trying to keep the loom in the hands while they were doing it. And I think they might have said something about putting something on the backside and stabilizing it, but it's nothing I've ever tried. Again, it's one of those things where I try not to mess with things as much as I can, but yeah.
I managed to stick a tweezer through the loom in the arrow hand of one of my Flightmaster projects, and I saved all the chunks and I flipped the hand over and I tried to put all the pieces back in place, and then I used some Tester's clear coat on the backside, which was pretty thin. It pulled it back together. You can see the cracks. It was a really stupid, that's why I'm sitting here in the amateur hour workshop.
Well, the broad arrow has like a huge piece of loom in it, right?
It does.
Yeah. So it's understandable.
I'm hoping that we could do some sort of hand reloom and repaint sort of demonstration or something with Jack, because I've seen some work that he's done. He's just, really phenomenal. And I've seen some YouTube videos on it, and I've attempted to do some on my own, and, it's not as easy as it looks. And in Colorado, your adhesives tend to dry out really quick. So, you get it mixed up and it's already starting to get sticky and dry by the time you're getting it onto the hand.
Yeah. Now, how are you applying the loom? Are you sticking it on like a dedicated loom applier, or are you propping it up on a toothpick?
Using a oiler. That's what everybody uses, a little oiler pick.
Well, I mean, no. Do you have like a tool to put the hand on?
Oh, toothpick. Toothpick. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you see most people do.
Yeah, I usually like to avoid doing that because a lot of times if you stick a toothpick up, you stick it in some Rodico, and usually it isn't quite even and the loom can pool. If I am making if I'm making relooming a hand, usually I'll stack it up on I'll put them on 2 rolls of Rodico and I'll loom them on there and I'll make sure
I've
that the
seen that.
Rodico is level.
I've seen that too. Yep.
Well, here on speaking of reloomed hands and stuff, here I'll show you what I'm wearing. This is one of the other ones I was gonna talk about, and it's the only one that I have that has kind of like cracked loom, and I've been wondering whether or not I should do something with it, but I don't wear it enough to really like worry about it. But it's it's an Ulsta. It's the dive watch that Richard Dreyfuss wears in Jaws, and it's that was the reason that I bought it. I bought it a few years ago, and I found it on eBay, and I was like, oh, that's the one. It's not the exact model. The model he wears has a sword hands, and it has a black dial with a black and white aluminum insert bezel. So this one's slightly different, but it has the same case, same case shape and size and stuff. But it's called the Super Automatic Ink Block Certified 999 feet rating, and then the back says NAWCC on it, which is and then it has the depth rating and stuff on it. So it was one that I bought originally as kind of like a beater watch that I could like.
Yeah. Well, who made the Bathyscath? Was that Croton?
Bathyscath was
A who?
Blancpain.
Sorry, I can't hear you over Terry Jones' phone ringing.
Yeah, I'm going to mute Terry.
The Bathyscath was the Blancpain.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So this was, I think all of them had, all these dive watches and stuff had some sort of like reference to scaff in them back when the skin divers and stuff. But the bezel still rotates, and it's got like a bright orange second hand. It's got the day date and stuff. So but this is the one. It has aged loom, but I don't know if you can see like the hands. It's a little bit cracked in the hands, so I do kind of assume that at one point.
Yeah, I can't see.
Yeah, it'll probably just fall out at some point. But I just call it my Jaws watch.
What is meant by the term super automatic? I've seen that before. How is that different from a regular automatic?
That's probably not. I imagine it was just a marketing thing. I've never even opened this one, to be honest, because the back it doesn't have all that many case marks on the back and stuff. But I've seen ones that are open, and it's just a typical rotor, center mount rotor and stuff. So they actually, I think. Also,
what vintage is that?
Sorry,
what vintage is that?
I would imagine it's from the 70s or early 70s. I think is when most of them come from. They came in a bunch of different variants. They had ones that had like a brown dial. They had the blue dial. They had the black dial. I think I never saw a silver dial one, but you can see them on eBay every once in a while. There's somebody usually selling them. They came in this big cushion case shape, and then they also came in more of like a skin diver shape that was like a little bit more angled on the sides. But it's got a screw down crown, and I've never taken it in the water. And frankly, I think that the dial on this one has a little bit of like stippling to it, and so I imagine some water got in there at some point, and like the way that your Pogue kind of has a little bit of that corrosion around where the coating would have been thin at the subdial. This has it's pretty uniform, but it definitely water has gotten in there at some point, I would imagine. But it's nice for, I didn't spend more than a couple $100 on it and stuff, and I think they actually started remaking these. There's a company that makes this particular model, and it's not as good of a recreation as you would like the sword hands that they use are the proportions are a little bit different than on the original one, and the case itself too, that has these like little chamfered edges and stuff. The case proportions are a little bit different too, but the dial and the style and stuff. If you want that look that Richard Dreyfuss had, in the movie, it's a decent, it's a
Very good.
decent recreation. But yeah, those are the ones I wanted to talk about. So
Super.
yeah.
Well, both Terry and Mike Lingard are muted. You'll have to unmute, but Mike, anything progress on your little kitchen clock for your friend?
Oh, that's the one that had the broken mainspring.
Mainspring.
I actually put the clock back together and returned it to him. I didn't feel it was worth, the time and effort for me to go out there and try to find something and get it modified and, put it back together. This is a friend of my wife, so I don't even know the person. I was just kind of told them I would take a look at it. So I just returned it to them and gave them the specifications for the mainspring if they wanted to, take a look.
Okay.
So,
Terry, any update on the regional? You're muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. We're going to make a decision on the regional in about, today's the end of July, end of middle August, we'll have a decision. One of the problems we find is we're in Jefferson County out there, and they have rules on how many people can be gathered in one spot at one time. I think it's either 30 or 50, and it varies, and everyone's waiting, and it depends. We've even talked about maybe having a virtual regional where people sign up and they have, like we are, with their things displayed on a table, and you buy and sell or hear lectures or something. And that's probably sort of cumbersome. I'm not getting too many people that approve of that. Dave Resnick said, well, let's just wait till the last minute and decide. Talked to Pat Downing about it. He didn't like the idea of doing a Zoom regional. So we're just, I'd say the chances of canceling are 50-50 at this point and just have it next year. And of course, next year, we don't know if we will have that facility again, because that's all up in the air with Jefferson County Fairgrounds. There, we hear, according to the camera club that you belong to, they're going to limit just to 4-H kids and agricultural things and not have groups like us in there, but we don't know that for sure for next year. So things are like everything else in our life are sort of up in the air right now. But we'll keep our website updated.
Now, I had a question that I wanted to ask everybody real quick, because I'm probably going to have to get going here and eat lunch. I'm looking for Timex watches, and more specifically, I'm looking for well, for the most part, parts watches. I've started fixing some Timex watches for some people. And I'm looking for a Timex Lollipop Divers watch for myself.
So you're looking for a Timex dive style watch with a Lollipop second hand?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I gotta jump off, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
See you, Sean. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. See you soon.
Okay, we'll probably do another one in a couple of weeks. So we'll see you.
I gotta jump off too. So unless anyone else has anything pressing, I'm going to leave. I got to return a phone call.
Okay. Terry, another option for regionals is doing them outside in a parking lot.
Yeah, even that, I don't know if you've been following that, the Bandimere Race Speedway, they ended up having too many people sitting too close together. And so there's even rules about that now where you have to have social spacing and all that. So I don't know how it would work, especially you watch guys when someone is at your table and they're handling watch or tools, and do you want to spray it down and wipe your table and have handy wipes there and have everybody wearing masks and take pictures as they walk in? I mean, there's all kinds of ramifications of complications, I should say.
Complications, you got it. So
yeah,
we'll see.
All right. Well, anything else to add, or we can just go ahead and call it a day, seeing how it's been a while.
Yeah. So nobody has any of those Timexes that they know of?
Well, I had one, but sold it to Lawrence Cohen, and he's not going to part with it. They're on eBay.
Yeah. Actually, I was looking at one right now. Yeah. All right.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And is lunchtime fine with you guys, or should we do afternoons?
Okay with me.
Oh, it works okay with me.
Okay, well then I'll just kind of continue this trend, and we'll do something in another few weeks. So thank you all for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Tim.
All right,
Bye.
all stay safe. Bye.
Stay healthy.